Toyota 4Runner axle seals and wheel bearing replacement. I'm Brian Eslick from How To Automotive. I'm going to walk you through that process. So the first step you need to do is get your vehicle up in the air. If you're doing it at home, use floor jacks and jack stands and get your rear tires off. After we get it all torn down, I'll give you a breakthrough or a list of all the parts you'll need to do this job. So we'll start by getting these wheels off. If your drums are stuck, you can take an 8x125 bolt like this. Insert in, there's a couple holes in the drum that'll have thread them in there using the impact gun or electric gun like this, and screw it in like that, and that'll pull the drum off. So now that you got the drums off, what you need to do is get a little brake line clamp and clamp the brake hose on the back of the differential, so you can see it's in the center. And so you want to clamp the brake hose, because what we're going to do is we're going to remove this brake line here, and we don't want all of our fluid to run out and drain out. So put the clamp on there, and then you can go ahead and take the 10mm here and remove the brake line. So as you can see, the gear oil is all over the shoes. So if yours is like this, absolutely do not reuse these shoes. Don't try to clean them and reuse them, replace them. So the next step, with that saying, the next step is to get these brake shoes and parts off. So what we're going to do is a tool that looks like this, put it over the this part of the brake hardware, and you push in and you rotate, and you may have to use one hand behind and hold this pin here with your finger, kind of hold it in place so it doesn't spin also. So you're going to do that for both sides, and then go ahead and push the pin through, and go ahead and take this little clip off here too, and set this all aside. So go ahead and remove the pin completely, and you can do it for both sides. Then what you're going to do is take a large screwdriver or a pry bar like this and put it behind the brake pad right here, and what we're going to do is we're going to pry outwards and then pry that on the front side of this. So we'll do both sides, so like that, and then you're going to take the spring and pry it down. So you pry the spring down like that. Now what you can do is take the spring off completely and set that aside. Now what you want to do is take the park brake cable here and unhook it from right there. And now you can slide both shoes downwards off the wheel cylinders here like this. And now you can do is kind of lift them in front like that and rotate the whole pad part shoe assembly off as one whole assembly and set it aside for now. So now you have your brake line disconnected. You just leave it right where it was. You don't pull it back, bend it or anything. Just unscrew the screw, take off your brake shoes like that. Next thing we're going to do is right here on the park brake cable here, there's these springs. So there's going to be one spring like this here and one directly underneath here, and you're just going to take a pair of side cutters like this, grip it and pull it towards the backing plate and take the spring off. Now that you got top and bottom of the springs off, you can leave them in there or you can take them out completely. They just kind of hook in there like that. After you got that, now you're going to remove the two 12mm bolts on this side of the backing plate. So once you got the two 12s out, then you can just pull the cable through like that and just let it hang down. Now we're going to remove the 4 14mm bolts. So there's 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom of the axle. Remove those 4. So after removing all 4 of the nuts that held the backing plate and axle on, now you're going to take a little hammer and just pop it free like that. Now you, with both hands, you can take the whole backing plate and axle and slide it out of the tube. You're also going to need a bucket to catch the gear oil that's going to drain out of the axle tube. So a trick for getting the inner seal out is to take a large pair of channel locks like this, and you hook it inside the seal like this, just on the edge of the seal, like that. And you take a hammer, like so, and you strike the end of the handle. Maybe you use the wood part or whatever. You're obviously going to have to hold it with both hands. You strike it a few times. So after you strike it a few times in the end, what happens is it pops the seal out just like that. So now that you got that seal out, I wanted to take the time to show you some of the parts you're going to need. So what you're going to need is you're going to need this is the seal we just popped out, so it goes in the end of the tube. So you're going to need a new one of those. You're going to need 2 of these metal keepers, which are going to be here. You're also going to need the ABS ring right here. We're going to cut these 2 rings off with the die grinder. We're not going to try to save them or reuse them. It's like almost impossible. Every time I've done it, I've damaged them and they just don't work. So what we're going to do is order new ones, cut those off, and then behind it there's a snap ring and then another one of these keepers. So you're going to need 2 of the keepers and the ABS rings, the new wheel bearing, which the wheel bearing is in here, but we're going to press out in a minute. And then there's a seal here on the outer seal. You're going to need that too. Now, I give you all the part numbers and stuff, but this video is designed to be for a wide range of Toyota 4Runners and also Tacoma pickups. So, and parts may vary. So I suggest you go to your local parts supplier and tell them the year, make, model, and you can determine what parts you need for your car. But these are the things you will need. So you'll need the 2 keepers, the ABS ring, and the 2 seals, and a bearing. You'll also need rear brake shoes, and then you're going to have to determine if your drums are in good enough shape to reuse. If they are, what we're going to do is we're going to put these in the parts washer and wash all the gear oil out of that stuff, or a pressure washer, or whatever it takes to clean all the gear oil, and then we're going to remachine those drums. So the drums are going to be case by case. If yours are out of measurement or are just in really bad shape, then I recommend you buy new drums too. So the next portion of this video is removing the bearing, pressing the bearings in and out, and it does require a special tool. So if you guys are doing this at home and you don't have the tool to do this, what you could do is take this part of the job down to your local repair shop, and then all your parts, and then have them press the bearings in for you, and then you could take this whole assembly and then follow the second half of the video on how to reassemble the rear end. And it'll save you a lot of money either way, if you're doing the whole job yourself, or if you're just parting half of the job out. So the next step is a kind of a crucial step. We need to take a measurement, and the reason why is this seal, right here where this keeper is, the seal, actually the inner seal that we just popped out of the tube, it rides on here and it's pressed down to a certain depth, and if we get it too far in or not far enough, it won't seat. The seal won't sit on there like it's supposed to, like this. And maybe if it's too far in, then it may miss it and actually leak really bad, or if it's just a little off, it'll leak a little bit, or if it's too far, not far enough, then you may have trouble getting it, or maybe bind things up, or damage the seal. So what we need to do is take a tape measure like so, and we need, right on the very top of the race, we need to measure from here to the very top of the axle tube, or the axle shaft, I should say, and take the measurement and write it down. So when we put this back on and press this back on, we want this pressed back down to pretty much the exact same depth. If we go, like I said, if we go too far or not far enough, we have a little potential for leaks. So like I said, you're going to measure from the top of the bearing race to the shaft. And it's going to be different from left to right side, and it may be different from a Toyota 4Runner, maybe slightly different from a Toyota Tacoma. So make sure you take the measurement and write it down. So the next step after taking your measurement is you're going to take a die grinder, with a cutoff wheel like this, and what you're going to do is wear your safety glasses. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut at an angle like this, and we're going to cut the ABS ring off, and we're going to cut the ABS ring like in half, like halfway through, and we're going to cut this keeper about 3/4 of the way through without touching the axle, going all the way through and cutting into the axle. So so you got to take your time with this, and I'll cut a little bit and I'll show you how it looks. So after taking your cutoff wheel and cutting about 3/4 of the way through this keeper without cutting into the axle And you go ahead and just cut through the ABS ring. What we're gonna do is, so what I do is after I get it cut like that, I'll take my impact gun like this with just a chisel bit in the end of it, and you put it in there and you hit it. And what that does is with it being cut, it cracks it, and then you can slide this ring off, and then you can use the impact the impact hammer, and then you can chisel the ABS ring off the rest of the way. Just being careful with small hits not to slip off and hit the tube. So after hitting the race with the chisel on the impact gun, it broke that off and it slid off. And then I just kind of chiseled this up a little bit, mangled it up a little bit, and then I took some pry bars, or you can use ladies feet or whatever you want to use, and then I used the nut, and I kind of pried it and pried the ABS ring off. So now that you got the ABS ring and the outer clip off, now what we need to do is we need to get this C-clip out. So use your pliers and get the C-clip out, or the snap ring, whatever you want to call it. Go ahead and get the snap ring out, and then once you get that out, so I just used a pair of snap ring pliers, put it in the tip, flared it, and it popped it out. Now you can slide it off and set that aside. Okay, now that you got the snap ring off, what we're going to do is you're going to need a tool like this. And you can get this tool from Amazon or JB Tools. JBTools.com is another place. So it slides over the axle like that. And then you're going to take the original nuts that you used that had it bolted on, and you're going to bolt this tool to the back of the backing plate. Next, you're going to adjust your press to where the height is. So you're going to slide the tool up from underneath, and then slide your little plates underneath the lips of the tool here, like that, and line it up with your the end of your axle with the press. So you're going to set up a whatever spacer, whatever you need to set it up. I just happen to be using a socket. You want to make sure it doesn't flare over the edge and damage the threads on the axle. So once you got that on there, now you can go ahead and just press the tube down. You're definitely going to hear a pop noise or two as you're doing this, but once it pops, then as you press, it'll come right out. So as you press it, the axle shaft will fall out of the tube, and it'll fall through once you get it all the way out. Now you can take this whole rig out of this jig here. Now that you separated the axle from the bearing and backing plate, go ahead and take your bolts off and remove your tool. Now that you got your tool unbolted, now you can just go ahead and flip your backing plate over. Then you can use a pair of channel locks like this and hook it in the seal. And pry it like that, pop the seal off. And once the seal comes off, now the bearing is not pressed into the backing plate, it's just kind of in there, so you can just kind of tap it out the back side, like that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the backing plate, the axle shaft, and we're going to clean this all up. So if you want to, you can remove the two bolts on the back for the wheel cylinder, remove it, or you can put like a little piece of rubber seal or something in here and then wash everything together. I like to just put a little rubber grommet in here. I'll take this over to my parts washer and wash everything, and just leave the wheel cylinder on there, and I'll clean up the axle and the backing plate, and then all the brake hardware too. That you can scrub that all off in prep. You can just take the whole assembly the way it's assembled over there and just throw it in your parts washer and wash it while it's all together. Okay, so after cleaning all your parts up, what you want to do is take your new seal that goes on the inside where it looks like this. So you're just going to take it, and basically it pretty much just presses on. You can pretty much press it on by hand. And now once you get it on there in position like that, you want to take a little grease, axle grease or just some grease, and put it on the edge right there where the seal rides. It rides right here, and that just helps it from like when you first start moving, it doesn't overheat the seal and kind of melt this lip and damage it. So once you got that on there, then you're going to take the backing plate, and slide it over the axle tube like this, and slide it over the little part. Now you're going to take your bearing, your wheel bearing, and I like to take the wheel bearing that has the writing on it, so I'll put that face down like that. So I'll slide the bearing down like that. So now that I got the bearing slid over the axle tube, we need to get this pressed down into here. And the way I achieve that is I take a metal pipe just like this. And this diameter here fits perfectly around this diameter here without going too far into where the brown seal is. It fits only over the metal tube. So it's going to look like this. So when you slide it down, it looks just like that. So it's the perfect diameter. And you also want to put a block of wood under there, underneath the axle. So once you find that tube, and it's just a long, heavy tube, now you can take it. Slide it down and you hear that audible change where it sounds like it just, that's it, it's not going any further. That's when you know you're fully seated. Next, you're going to take one of your keepers, and with the flange side facing upwards, you're going to slide it over the tube like this, and slide it on. Then you take that same metal pipe that you put the bearing on with, and you're going to hammer this until it's flush with the new bearing. Once the keeper's fully flushed, now you're going to take your snap ring and slide it on the tube and slide it in there until it snaps into the groove here. So now that you've got your snap ring back in, the bearing's in, the race is in, or the keeper is in, I should say, and then the snap ring is in. Now you're going to take your ABS ring and you're going to, that open end, you're going to flare it where it goes on the actual tube like that. So it's going to look like that. So we're going to tap this on just a little bit because this is pressed down to a certain depth. So we're just going to tap it on until it starts a little bit, and then so it's just on there and starting a little bit. Next, we're going to get our next keeper. So this next step is a pointing step. Is you take this last keeper and you slide it on with the beveled edge pointing upwards, like that. Now you're going to take your pipe and you're going to drive it down, and then you're going to stop, take your pipe off, and measure from here to the top again. And you want that measurement to be to the exact measurement that you took earlier. So you're going to go small little taps at a time until and then keep measure. So tap a few times, measure. Tap a few times, measure. So once you got that tap down to the exact depth, so as you can see, it's not fully seated. It has a gap between there, so you have to make sure you got that measurement right. You know, when you tap it down, just light little taps, and you press these together at the same time. And once you get it to the depth that you had it before, you're pretty much done with this part of the installation. Now what we need to do is switch our focus to the inner seal. So we're going to take our new inner seal that we popped out of the tube there, and you're going to clean the old tube up. And there's also an O-ring here that you're going to need to get to. I forgot to mention that. So you can go ahead and clean your tube up. So you get your seal and you put a little grease on the edge of the seal like I did, like that. And you go ahead and start it in the tube. And once you got it started in the tube, then what you do is you find the proper seal driver tool, like so. The one that properly fits, and then you hammer it, you know, equally. You don't want it to cock it at an angle or anything, so you want it to go on straight as can be. And go ahead and hammer that into the tube until it seats in there all the way. So now that your seal's fully seated in, now you can take your axle assembly that you, the bearing shaft and everything, and slide that back in the backing plate and slide it all back on. You want the wheel cylinder pointing upwards. And when you slide the axle through, you don't want it to rest on the seal. So you want to kind of hover it in the middle and slide it all the way in until all the bolt holes line up, and not let the axle shaft itself lay on the seal or damage the seal. So So get it in there all the way after, and also replace this O-ring here. So slide it in, and then once it's all the way in, then you can start your bolts, your nuts on the back. So now that you got it stabbed back through, you got your wheel cylinder pointing in the right position. I put a little blue thread sealer on it, made by Permanex, on the threads. And I'm gonna start these nuts, and I'm gonna torque these down, you know, like kind of in a crisscross pattern. So I'll tighten this one down a little bit, and then I'll go over here and tighten this one. And I'm gonna do that, and then once I get them all drawn all the way in, I'm gonna torque them down to 48 foot-pounds. So now you can go ahead and, after you get the bolts bolted up, go ahead and restart your brake hose, your brake line, and tighten that down. And then after that, you're gonna take your emergency brake lever here and slide it back through the holes right here, and go ahead and bolt the two bolts up. You can torque those down to 13 foot-pounds. So now you're going to take the two springs here and hook them in the holes if they fell out, and then use your side cutters and just pull them and hook them into the little holes that were right here, top and bottom. So when you're done, it should look like that. So now that you got everything bolted up on the rear end, go ahead and put a little dab of grease on the mounting spots where the brake shoes ride, and kind of just rub it in a little bit. That'll help prevent from squeaks and stuff like that. So now we need to transfer our brake parts back over to our new shoes. And the way we do that is I'm going to take the shoes here and flip them upside down and remove this spring here with just a pair of like side cutters. Just pull the spring off, and so unhook the spring like that. Now you're just going to kind of just take it off the back and just set it aside like that for now. So now we need to get the adjuster rod out. And the way I do that is I turn the brake pads up on its end, and I put 1 foot on the one side, 1 foot on the other side, and kind of just pull. And that'll stretch this spring enough to get this free. So you'll pull it until it pops out like that, and just pull straight up with both hands, and you can see the spring flex. Now you can go ahead and pull off all the springs, all the adjuster, and set it aside. And now what we need to do is put a little screwdriver in here and pop this little clip off, and take this little arm off. So here's the little clip that I popped off in the arm that came off, just like that. Kind of just set it aside. Now what we need to do is take this little horseshoe clip here and flare it open. And you can do that with multiple ways, with pliers, screwdrivers. I actually have a tool that's designed to go inside of it, and you put it on the end, and you squeeze it, and it flares it open, and then you take this clip off. So once the horseshoe clip is off, then you can take the arm here, kind of work it off the old one. And now you can set this brake shoe aside, and you take your new one. If you need to clean yours up, go ahead and now clean this up. Now you can transfer this arm over to the new brake shoe that has the proper pin to match it up with the old one. So now that you got that on, now you can go ahead and put this horseshoe clip back on. So slide it back on the groove where it goes, and then you'll squeeze it back together. And I use the tool like this to just squeeze it on, and then you squeeze the nose of them together until they're touching together like that. Now the arm is mounted, but you can get away with using pliers if you don't have that. So that the next step is to take the arm, you go ahead and put that back on, and then put the little clip on. So now that you got the clip on, now you need to take your adjuster here, and you, if it needs cleaning, clean it up. And you can also spin it out and put a little lube on the threads if it needs it. And then once that's all lubed up and cleaned up, then what you can do is you can take the adjuster and spin it all the way in. Once it's already all the way threaded back in, now you can take the outer half of the adjuster and slide it off. And if the inside of that needs lubing, you put a little lube, you know, a little grease that's designed for brakes. Put that, just a little dab in there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take this little ear part and flare this open a little bit, and you're going to put it in here like that. And then this little, that little ear that's on there is going to go through the hole, and you're going to make sure that it's locked in like that. Now you're going to flip it back over on this side, and you're going to put this little spring back on here. So that's going to hook right here on the shoe, and then you're going to stretch it and hook it into the little hole right here, and that's going to hold everything together. Now that you got that spring on, now you're going to take your adjuster and you're going to slide it back into the thing, and then what you're going to have to do is lift this up a little bit with your finger and then slide it all the way in until it's fully seated. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take your spring that looks like this, and you got to figure out which end. So you want this little notch to go over the adjuster like that, but it's going to be on the back side. So you're going to, so if it's wrong way, it'll look like that, and the adjuster won't have the little notch on it. So you'll know you got it right when that little notch is lined up with the notch here. So you're going to hook it, and then on the inside part, you're going to hook this spring. So it's going to look like that. As you can see, my little adjuster fell out, so I got to put it back in. So now that you've got the spring hooked on the back side like that, you can take your outer shoe and it's the one without the little pin on it, like this. It does not have the pin. So you're going to hook it on the outside. So this one's coming from the inside. That one's going to hook on the outside. Now what you're going to do is hold this upwards and kind of stand it straight up like you. So you can stand it back up on the side like this, and then you can put your feet on the left and right side again and stretch it until this lines up with this groove here and slides into the slot. So now the spring is on the back, hooked on the front, and it's on there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to kind of flare the bottom of it up wider and slip it over the axle and kind of rotate it in there. So the assembly kind of like that, and then what you do is you kind of just lift it and rotate it around with both hands. It's hard for me to do with film and one-handed. And you'll just get it in there where both of these ears drop in below. So now they're kind of looking like that. So now what you can do is you can line up one shoe with the wheel cylinder and slide the other one up with the wheel cylinder. And when you get them both kind of in the wheel cylinder, then you flare the bottom out, and then you slide at least one end on the groove here, like that. So now the brake shoes are kind of just sitting in there. You want to take your cable and you want to put it back into the little the park brake cable and put it back into the little lever. Now what you can do is, once that's in there, what I like to do is take this shoe and go ahead and put the pins back in on this side. So I'll take one of the pins that you took out earlier, slide it from the back through the hole, and slide it through the shoe, and then take the clip that looks like this and put it on. Then you can set the spring over it. Then you're going to take the outer side of the keeper, and you're going to line up. See how the pin has to slot it? So you're going to line it up where the slots line up. Then you're going to use your spring compressor tool and push it in until it goes over the stud, and then rotate it a quarter turn. So when it's all back together, it'll look like that. And also I reach my hand around the back to kind of hold with my fingers to hold the pin from spinning as I use my tool. And this is the tool I use. It's a brake tool that goes over it, and then you can push with your hand, push inward and then twist to line up the slots. So you're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the shoe on this side too. So now that you got this spring on there, now what you're going to do is you're going to kind of take the brake shoes and pull them a little wider and pull them in front of the groove here and push them inwards. And you're going to do both sides like that, and that squeezes these together. Now what you can do is you can take this cable here and you can go ahead and hook it on there, and then you also want to make sure that it's hooked underneath see how it's not under the ear? So you want to make sure that it's underneath like that, and then when you pull it, so now that that's on there like that, we're going to put the lower spring on. So you're going to put the spring on like this, And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a large screwdriver or a pry bar, and we're going to put it behind the inside of the shoe here, and hook it on the metal bracket, and pry it until it goes behind the groove. And then we'll do the same thing for this one on this side. So you'll put it behind there, and you'll pry it over, and then pry this behind there. Now that they're both behind, now you need to take this spring, kind of pry it downwards a little bit, and pry it underneath the lip here. Now you can push your brake shoes back up, and you want to center the shoes so they're both centered in the center of the pistons on the wheel cylinder. Now what you can do, that pretty much, now your rear brakes are pretty much assembled. Now what you need to do is put your drum on. If your drum was coated in oil, you need to machine it and clean it, or if it needs to be replaced, replace it. So once you determine that, now you can slide your drum on, and through the back side here, you take the little rubber tab off that was here, and then with an adjustment spoon you can adjust the lever here, and that'll spread the adjuster out, and you adjust your brakes until there's a light drag where you can feel these shoes lightly dragging on the inside of the drums, and that pretty much indicates that you got it, adjusted correctly. And then also after that, then you're gonna remove your bleeder, your clamp here on your brake hose, and take that off. And then what you're gonna have to do after you get the brakes adjusted and the clamp off is lower the vehicle down, and then you're gonna have to bleed the brakes. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna have somebody pump the brake pedal, and you're gonna crack, and when they hold the brake pedal down, you're gonna crack this brake line free, or the little 10 millimeter bleeder screw here. You're gonna crack that open, and the fluid's gonna squirt out. Close it. Have your partner pump the pedal again a few times. Open this line, let the fluid bleed out, close it, and you may also have to bleed the opposite side. And in the meantime, you're gonna also check your master cylinder and top it off as needed. And then once you get all the air out and the pedal is nice and firm, then you're ready to put your rear tires back on and torque your wheels down. And after your brakes are all bled and adjusted, then you want to remove this plug on the back of the differential and top off the gear oil for test drive. And that completes the rear axle seal and bearing replacement on Toyota 4Runners, Tacomas. I'm Brian Eslick from How To Automotive, and I'd like to thank you guys for watching my videos and encourage you to subscribe for more valuable videos like this. Thank you again.